Hello friends, let us now learn some important points about pericardial effusion. Okay. Pericardial fluid, normally if you see the pericardial fluid will be around 20 to 30 ml and in pericardial effusion, in this is pericardial effusion. I'll write full name. In pericardial effusion, the fluid level will be more than 50 ml. So what is etiology? Etiology, fluid can accumulate in pericardial cavity in almost all forms of pericardial disease. It can occur in almost all forms of pericardial disease. Okay, this pericardial effusion can be of two types. Okay, one, it can be either transudate, second, it can be either exudate. Okay, if it is transudate in congestive heart failure, in overhydration states, or in states of hypoproteinemia, the pericardial effusion is transudate. It is exudate if there is pericardial injury. In cases of pericardial injury, it is exudate. Then there can be also serosanguinous pericardial fluid may be seen, and this serosanguinous pericardial fluid is actually a sign in tuberculosis and neoplastic diseases. Okay, and you can also see frank blood also can be seen in the pericardium, especially it occurs in aortic aneurysm or aortic dissection. You can see frank blood. Then you can also see hemopericardium. Hemopericardium is also produced. It is produced due to closed trauma or penetrating trauma. Actually, there is not much difference between these both. It is mostly used interchangeably. Okay, due to penetrating trauma or rupture of heart, whenever there is rupture of heart in acute MI, or this hemopericardium can also be caused by bleeding caused by coagulation studies. Now, when the fluid accumulates slowly, if fluid accumulates slowly in such a way that the heart can take it, then this results in pericardial effusion. Okay, if fluid accumulates so rapidly that it is difficult for the heart to expand, and so rapidly that the fluid itself is compressing the heart and it is inhibiting the cardiac filling, that will result in cardiac tamponade. Okay, now the most important things in pericardial effusion are the signs of pericardial effusion. The signs of pericardial effusion include: one, we have Frederick's sign. What is Frederick's sign? Frederick's sign is sudden collapse in distended neck veins occurs. There occurs sudden collapse in distended neck veins occurs with diastole, which suggests of pericardial tamponade. This is suggestive of pericardial tamponade. Then the next sign is the Pitayer's sign. In Pitayer's sign, there is anterior. You will see presence of anterior bulging of sternum is seen, and it is suggestive of pericardial effusion. Okay, then the next sign we have Eulenberger sign. What do you see in Eulenberger sign? You will see presence of protuberance is seen, or you will see bulging of epicardium. Protuberance or bulging of epigastrium occurs, which will suggest pericardial effusion, which is massive pericardial effusion. This is seen on inspection itself. Okay, then if you see the next sign, this Orenberger sign, what does it represent? It represents presence of large pericardial effusion which is extending to subxiphoid region. Okay, then if you see the next sign we call it as Sampson's sign. So what do you see in Sampson's sign? Here you will see that there is percussible dullness is seen in the left third intercostal space, which suggests presence of large pericardial effusion. Okay, this is in the left intercostal space. Next you have the next sign, which is called as green sign. Okay, in green sign you will see presence of lateral displacement of percussed cardiac border. There is lateral displacement of percussed cardiac border is seen with expiration. Okay, this will again suggest large pericardial effusion. Then we have next Epstein sign. Epstein sign. What is Epstein sign? It is here if there is large pericardial effusion. This large pericardial effusion can blunt the right cardiomyopathic angle. Large pericardial effusion can blunt the cardiomyopathic angle. Thus, it produces dullness along the right lower sternal border. Okay, that is Epstein sign. Then if you see the next sign, we have Roch sign. In Roch sign you will see presence of dullness is seen at right lower sternal border. It is similar to the Epstein sign. Okay, then you will see the next sign, which is Moschowitz sign. Here in Moschowitz sign there is transition on percussion. The transition on percussion from lungs in right heart border is abrupt. The transition on percussion from lungs in right heart border is abrupt. This is Moschowitz sign. Then what is the next sign? The next sign is Evarts sign. In Evarts sign there is egophony occurs, and even bronchial egophony and bronchial breathing, both these will occur in lower border of left scapula. Okay, this is Evarts sign. Then we have one more sign, which is Evarts second sign. In Evarts second sign, right rib is seen more prominent. This right rib is seen more prominent along the sternal border. This is Evart second sign. Then we have the next sign, which is again Dressler sign. What is Dressler sign? Dressler sign is presence of dullness to percussion of lower half of sternum. Dullness to percussion on lower half of sternum is called as Dressler sign. Next, the next important sign is Bamberger sign. So what is Bamberger sign? It is dullness at angle of scapula that disappears. Dullness in the angle of scapula that disappears when the patient leans forward is called as Bamberger sign. Then we have Evart's sign. Evart's sign is dullness at left lower lung field. It is dullness at left lower lung field is called as Evart's sign, while dullness at the right lower lung field is called as Connor's sign. Next, then we have Bamberger sign. Bamberger sign is disappearance of, you can also put this Bamberger sign like this, disappearance of Evart's and Connor's sign when patient sits up. So this is the same Bamberger sign, but it can also be given like this also. Okay, so these are the different signs. We don't need to remember or memorize these signs. This is just for some knowledge. Then diagnosis. Diagnosis, we have echocardiography is actually best diagnosis, and this is the best test to confirm pericardial effusion, because in echocardiography you will see presence of echo free space between posterior pericardium and posterior left ventricular epicardium. You will see echo free space between posterior pericardium and posterior left ventricular epicardium in patients with small effusions. Okay, so this is important. Then so on ECG, sometimes it is associated with electrical alternance, especially if the patient has large effusions, then there can be electrical alternance. And on chest X-ray, you will see presence of water bottle configuration of heart is seen. Okay, so the question is, what is the differential diagnosis for low voltage complexes? Where do you see low voltage complexes? In ECG. So all differential diagnosis. Low voltage complexes are seen in pericardial effusion. Okay, they are seen in restrictive cardiomyopathy. They are seen in mixed edema heart, and they are seen in constrictive pericarditis. In constrictive pericarditis, mixed edema heart, and pericardial effusion, restrictive cardiomyopathy, you will see low voltage complexes. Now, if you were asked what is the best ECG criteria, best ECG criteria for pericardial effusion, here most specific is electrical alternance. Electrical alternance is most specific. Okay. Here in chest X-ray there is water bottle configuration, and you will also see there is CT ratio or cardiothoracic ratio is found to be elevated. This is cardiothoracic ratio is found to be elevated. Then what about the treatment? The treatment is you give fluid therapy is given to the patient. Fluid aspiration is done. Okay. So this is about the pericardial effusion. Thank you for watching.